So the carnivore diet can benefit everybody and anybody except a small, very small group of people. And those people who eat or who at least try to eat meat feel very nauseous when they eat meat, and they just will have to turn to the plant-based, vegetarian, or even a pescatarian diet to survive and live on this earth, because for some reason they can't ingest meat without feeling nauseous. And that's okay. And I say that because we live in a world where everyone's bodies are so different because, and I'm coming from a biblical worldview. So I do believe everything the Bible says, specifically King James, First English Translation Bible, that was created by God through people, right? God spoke to people, they created the book based on what God told them. And it is the words, the thoughts, the emotions, and the commandments that live in this book called the Bible. So I take it very seriously. So coming from a biblical perspective, if you follow what happens, from the fall of man, which was when Adam and Eve disobeyed God in the Garden of Eden, which was this utopia for humans, which was the ideal place that heaven will look like in the future, right? And actually right now it looks like that, right? It's a utopic area where God resides in this area, and there's no sin exists, and everything's euphoric, and there's no sin that exists, and everything is optimal, and time doesn't exist. There's different spiritual elements in this utopia, right? But when the fall of man happened, God cursed the ground. God cursed the woman to have labor pains, and cursed the man as well. And so when the curse of man and woman and the ground happened, and then the worldwide flood, everyone's microbiome changed. Everyone's genetic coding changed because it got degraded over time with each generation. And genetic coding is basically your identity, the identity that exists in a biological sense, right? It's your identity that goes on forever and ever. It's such a long, it's a long genetic coding, right? That spans for miles, apparently. Beautiful. That's God's creation, right? But because over time with each generation, we don't have the tree of life anymore, everyone's genetic coding is degraded. And some of us still have optimal ancestors that have like little bits and pieces of degradation of their genetic coding. Other people don't, they have it worse off. So it really depends on what happened in the past, what their past generations did, especially being inbreeding usually happened back in the day. And so inbreeding was no longer allowed by God when the fall of man happened, because, everyone, not exactly after the fall of man, but a little bit after, a couple of generations after, God didn't allow that anymore because everyone's genetic coding got degraded because they no longer have the tree of life to regenerate that genetic coding and make everyone's bodies optimal. God allowed other people God did not allow other people to inbred. Doesn't mean people follow that rule, okay? Which is why we see so many issues, with people's not fully developed and things like that. With people's bodies not becoming fully developed, teeth, jaws, things like that, because most likely inbreeding happened. And so that has also to do mainly with the breakdown, the genetic coding over each generation, right? And so I say all of that, you guys, because the climate, because of the worldwide flood, has changed for the worse, because now the soil is cursed by God, so it's not as plentiful and nutritious. And now because of the worldwide flood that happened years ago with Noah's Ark, that also changed the nutrition of the soil. So now we have people who are having different environments in their microbiome. Like the environment in your microbiome has these thousands and thousands of microorganisms, bacteria living in your gut, which is fascinating because God created each human from the ground, right? Like he created the first human being from the ground. And it's fascinating because all the elements that we have, minerals and nutrients from our body, is all from the ground, right? The ground has what? Phosphorus, potassium, It has vitamin, it has all these elements these minerals from the ground. So it makes sense that people, especially in the New Age community, it makes sense when people say our bodies love the ground, our feet love the ground, our bodies feel like it's in sync when it's in nature, because we did come from the ground. We were created materially, like physically from the ground, but our soul originated from God. He's the originator, okay? And so I say all of that, guys, because from the fall of man to the curse after that God had placed on man and woman and the ground, and the worldwide flood, and the fact that God stopped the act of inbreeding amongst generations years after Adam and Eve's generation, because he knew it wouldn't be helpful for humans to inbred, because if you notice like the history of inbreeding, right, brother and sisters getting married, they don't look so good. They look abnormal because they are, right? The genetic coding has broken down over time with each generation that it's best to marry, to create life with someone else outside of the family. And by the way, I do not like inbreeding. It's weird. I'm not condoning that. I'm saying it's wrong because people come out strange. They come out with, body issues, face issues, jawline is not fully developed. They just don't look fully developed. And they look worse off, and their life is worse off because of that. I know I'm ranting about this, but it all ties in together about the carnivore diet, because I do think because of the curse, the fall of Adam and Eve, and the worldwide flood, everyone's body is different. And that's the whole point I'm trying to make, is that every person's body, their microbiome in their gut is so different from each person, right? It could be similar from your mother, right? But because, if you did the natural birth, if you came out through the vagina, then you inherit her microbiome, because the microbiome is also in her vagina. It's down there too. And so you can have a similar microbiome to your mom, but it's still different, because we have thousands of organisms this bacteria living in your gut. So each person, it makes sense why some are better off eating gluten, some aren't, some are okay eating gluten but are better off without it. Or some people have extreme sensitivity, like what's his name, Jordan Peterson's daughter, Mikhaila Peterson. She is so sensitive to everything except meat, and it's because she has a different gut than most people, right? And she can only eat meat for the rest of her life. She had autoimmune disorders, and now it's poof gone because she eats meat. And I truly think that there are some people in this world, like I have a friend, when she eats meat, she feels nauseous. She doesn't feel good. And that's why I bring this up, because I always want to remind myself to be open-minded, because just like my friend, I can't say the carnivore diet's going to be for everyone. That just wouldn't be realistic, because we live in a fallen world where all of these things happen spiritually and physically and biologically, that everyone's body is so different. And because of external factors and what we ingest in our bodies can change over time. Like my friend, sometimes she feels great drinking milk and eating eggs, and sometimes she says she doesn't feel like it. Sometimes all she wants to eat are beans and rice and a side of vegetables. And she says this is her saying that she feels great, but when she eats meat, she feels nauseous. Interesting. So I truly believe it always has to do with the gut and how your body responds to certain foods based on your genetic coding. Because a lot of people feel like when they eat, like some people feel amazing when they eat steak along with a side of potatoes or a side of broccoli. They're not as sensitive as I would be if I ate only vegetables and maybe a side of a piece of steak. Like I feel very sensitive to plants. I don't really like plants. My body doesn't like plants. My gut doesn't like plants. It loves fruit now. It loves potatoes, but not a big fan of nuts or plants, right? So my body has changed over time. Before I was able to eat everything when I was younger in my teens, when I was able to abuse my body and not feel anything. But now I just, because of what I've done to my body over the years, I become very sensitive, right? And allergic to things because of my gut, my microbiome, and how it reacts to things. So I say all of that, guys, because the carnivore lifestyle can be for anybody except for those who don't feel well eating meat. And there are some people in this world who do not feel well eating meat. And like I said, I do believe it's because the fall of man and God cursing the ground, and now we live in a fallen world where everyone's microbiome responds to foods very differently, right? I hope this video made sense. I hope it helped and shed some light on health in the Bible. And I hope you have an amazing day. And with that being said, you guys, if you are struggling with pain, overall discomfort, you have a bad memory loss, you have a foggy brain, you can't think efficiently, right? When you talk to people, you can't conversate well either, you feel tired all the time, and most of all, you have a bloated stomach, then you're gonna have to watch my video down below that I created just for you about the 7 mistakes that you are making to not heal your gut, okay? Have an amazing day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.